So I recently finished up making a rather large black walnut picture frame, and in the initial glue up, the mitered corners didn't come together quite perfectly. They were really close, but I was going for perfect. So I had to go and do the old sawdust and wood glue trick to fill in the cracks and sand it off and try to hide it a little bit better. And it occurred to me that I had a bunch of different types of glue and I wanted to know which one would do the job best. So I created a test board here. I've got it all marked off for my 4 different types of glue, which are Titebond 2, Titebond 3, CA glue, and some 2-part epoxy. And I went ahead and made some cracks in the board. I took it to the bandsaw and made some shallow cuts to represent sort of a bad crack that you'd want to fill. And then I cut it up with a box cutter to do more like a hairline crack that you'd want to fill. I've got a sander full of black walnut sawdust. So we're going to mix some glue together. We're going to fill in the different cracks with the different types of glue and let it dry. Then we'll sand it off and see if one does a better job than the other. If I were to guess, I think the Titebond 2 and the 2-part epoxy might be the front runners. Titebond 3, in my experience, tends to dry a little bit whiter, and so I'm afraid that that's going to look lighter colored in the crack. And then the CA glue, I think, could do a good job, but it's going to have a very short working time and I'm going to have to get it done fast. So anyway, I'm curious to see which one of them ends up doing a better job, or maybe they all do the same job. We're about to find out. Well, we have our test all set up. Titebond 2, Titebond 3, and epoxy went together really easily and did kind of exactly what I thought it would. The CA glue also, I guess, did what I expected it to. I tried doing it 2 different ways. The first way was by putting a little glue in the crack, putting some sawdust in it, and then putting a little bit more glue over the top of it. I tried to do the same thing as the other glues on this side, and that is mixing it, dust and glue together, and then putting in the crack, and it just didn't want to work. And now it's already set up and rock hard, and it didn't hardly fill anything in. So I don't have high hopes for this at this point, but I'm going to go take this board, stick it in the house where it's a little bit warmer, and let it dry most of the day, and we'll sand it off later and see what it looks like. Well, I sanded it up through 220, and I just redrew those reference lines to try to make it make more sense. Looking at the thin and the thick lines, epoxy is a little dark, CA glue is a little dark. Titebond 3 actually got lighter, so I probably didn't mix the glue and sawdust well enough, and this is just straight glue that we're seeing now, which gives me a little bit of a concern. If I use Titebond 3 to try to fill a crack, and I don't mix it well enough and it comes out lighter, it's going to stand out. The one that really looks the best to me in the thin crack is Titebond 2. Now, if you look at the thicker crack, pretty much they all look about the same to me. Titebond 2 might be a little bit darker. CA glue just does not look great to me. There's a few spots where it's pretty good, but it just got voids in it. I think it just dried too fast that it could not get a good fill. Epoxy fills really, really nice, which I expected, but I don't think that looks quite right. Now the next step, I'm going to put some finish on this board and see if the different types of glues will take a finish, if they'll stand out more, if they'll blend in better. I just don't know. So right now the camera lens is set to 50 millimeters for the zoom, which is the equivalent of what the human eye sees. And then I have the board set 3 feet away from the lens. So you're looking at it at a pretty standard distance if you were maybe looking at pictures hanging on the wall. So I don't know how well this shows up on the camera, but as I'm looking at the screen back here, the right side, the epoxy tends to hide a little better. The left side, the Titebond 2, the thin crack looks great. The thick crack starts to stand out more. Titebond 3 maybe looks a little bit better than the Titebond 2. The CA glue looks alright, but I know from close up that I just don't like it, so it's already out. But at this point, I'm starting to think that the epoxy is the way to go. Well, that about does it for my little glue experiment. The whole time through working on it, I was thinking that the Titebond 2 was the front runner. It just seemed like it was blending in better through each of the grits when I was sanding it. And then, when I put the tung oil finish on, the epoxy took the lead. Something about the finish over all of them, and it just seemed like the epoxy actually blended in better than anything else. There's a lot of things that could be at play here. You know, maybe I mixed the ratio of glue to sawdust differently and screwed something up. But through my little tests, I liked the epoxy better, and that's why I went with the epoxy to fill in the cracks on my frame. What do you guys think? Can you tell? Do you have a different opinion of what looks good on my test here in your own workshops? If you tested out other glues that I don't have here that worked out better for you? I'd be curious to know what everybody thinks is the best solution for this common little problem. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.